So
it's high noon.
it is
on Wednesday afternoon.
High noon on Wednesday afternoon, and this is when we come to you live each week, normally from our studio outside Nashville, Tennessee, talking about ways to have you be happier, healthier,
Making more money.
having happier clients, better results, making more money, and enjoying the ride. And that's what this is all about. So one of the biggest challenges that we run into, and this is what Cameron and I want to do this particular webinar on, is, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about a dental office, it doesn't matter if we're talking about an HVAC company, it doesn't matter what service business you're in.
Real estate company, air conditioning company, doesn't matter.
I hope y'all can hear Cameron. The biggest challenge we see is where the sale actually takes place. Way too often, what we find is the sale is sabotaged big time because the financial conversation is where ultimately the sale is taking place, and it shouldn't be that way. Okay, what should happen is it should be sold before the financial conversation happens, and if it's not sold, then it's not ready for the financial conversation. Now think about this for a second. If you're in a service industry, let's say that you're a dental office. What you don't want to do is have the financial person try to close the deal when it's not already sold. And this is a big issue that we see. Oh, that was... You all right there, buddy?
I'm good.
You gonna keep it on the road? Listen.
Can't control it.
Y'all can't see out the window here. We have been flooding. We are south of Nashville, somewhere between...
We're in Georgia.
Somewhere between Atlanta and Tennessee. Yeah. And so, you gonna keep it on the road, though?
Yeah, brother.
Okay. Way too often, what we see is the financial person is left to close the deal. You don't want to bring the financial person into the conversation unless or until it's already sold. So as an example, if we're talking about a dental office, right? You want to create the value chair side. You want to make sure the patient understands the value. You want to make sure that the patient understands what that treatment ultimately means to them. And that's an important conversation as well. Because, can you see, man?
Yeah.
Dude, it's getting rough out here. So this is an important piece of that conversation as well. For you to be able to create value chairside, you can't simply look in the mouth, figure out what the problem is, and then offer the patient the solution. If that's the case, then the patient's going to want to know what it costs, which is an indication that it's not sold. Now, the same thing is true in your service organization.
I've got
CPA,
a great example.
Attorney,
I got a great
financial,
example.
It doesn't really matter the conversation.
I got two great examples.
Okay. But keep us on the road, buddy.
Where the sale actually takes place. Two great examples. Think about if you're a real estate agent, okay? Where does your sale take place? It doesn't take place at the closing table.
Right.
When the check happens, when the money exchanges hands, it doesn't take place there. The sale takes place in the value creation.
Well before that.
Finding out what it is exactly that your customer is looking for, and then showing them how your goods or your services will get them that. That's where it takes place. But a lot of times, we think that it takes place when the exchange of money happens.
And if you think about Cameron's example, you know, if you and I are looking for a house, you don't walk in and view the house and see the whole thing, and then sit down with the bankers and the closing agents and discuss the deal. I mean, that you don't sit down and try to work it out like that. You have value created, you have a semblance of a deal, and then after all of that happens and we've agreed upon it, now you sit down and you work through the financial arrangements. Same thing needs to happen in your business. If you don't do that, then you're ended up in a situation where you're trying to close a value deal. Not even a stormy car ride can stop the dental profits.
Oh,
exactly.
That's right, man.
And it is a stormy car ride. But if you're not closing it before it gets to the financial, then the whole situation gets muddy. And here's what happens. You end up trying to close, you end up trying to create value with the dollars. And you can't do that. All of this is really based on the common sense knowledge of why you and I as consumers buy. And it's not based on money. We all buy based on our perception of value. If the value, however, is not created before the financial, then the financial is all watered down, and the financial becomes about trying to create value with the dollars, and you're never going to be able to win a scenario like that. You end up playing tug of war with your customer, with your patient, with your client. And really, a good way to look at it is this. Nobody buys based on dollars. We all buy based on value. And if you try to close me with dollars when the situation is based on value, it all becomes about the price. And that's not where you want to go.
And you can't win that. You can't win that scenario. If you try to close me based on dollars, you can't win that scenario. You know why? Because I got the money.
Right.
I got the upper hand. I have the leverage. Until you find out what my problem is and how you can solve it for me emotionally, then there's no way I'm going to buy. Another good example. When was the last time you've been to a car lot? I know it's been a long, long time since you've been to a car lot, because I know where you get your cars. It's not the car lot. But those of you that have been to a car lot recently know that when you go into a car lot, you don't go in and start the negotiation process
with the finance manager
right away.
Right.
You go in and you become sold on the value before they ever start the negotiation. We're going to go test drive, and we're going to find out what it is that you want in your car, and find out what kind of car you need and what you're really looking for, what color, all those things, before we ever talk about the price. It's not closed on price, it's closed on value. And you guys that are out there that are having problems closing deals, it's probably because you haven't figured out how to create value, and you're leaning everything on price, and you're just getting beat up all the time. Your patients are telling you they can't afford it as they go outside and they get in their $50,000 brand new F-150 or Chevrolet. We were at a practice the other day. I was in a practice the other day, and the patient says, I don't have any money. And they go outside and get into a diesel GMC Denali truck. I don't know if you guys know how much those things cost, but they're $70-something thousand.
Right.
And he's just into the practice talking about, I don't have money for a partial. It's not that he doesn't have money for a partial. He doesn't have money for you.
He doesn't see value.
Exactly.
And you've got to hear what Cameron's saying and realize that when the patient says, I can't afford it, what they're saying is, you've not created value for me. And that's going to happen every single time if you're trying to close the deal financially instead of based on the value. So no matter what business you're in, you want to make sure that the deal is done and closed, and then the financial is all about how to make it affordable. Remember, you can't close a deal on dollars when it's based in the value. And Cameron mentioned a good point. You're not going to, your patients are not going to tell you that. How do you know, when you've got the sale taking place in the wrong place? Here's how you know, because you hear things like this. How much does that cost? What does my insurance cover? What is my out-of-pocket? These are the kind of things that you hear. Now, those are code for I don't see value. Now, what you got to do is internalize that and go, no, wait a minute. I'm not going to get mad at the patient. patient says those things, I have to realize it's me that's not created value. Now, you guys who are handling, if you're listening to this and you're the person who handles the financial, you're going, absolutely, I see that all the time. It's not sold in the back, and then I'm expected to try and close this on the dollar, so I'm playing tug of war with the patient's pocketbook, but they control the pocketbook. Or I'm playing tug of war with the customer, and their wallet, and they control their wallet. That's not a situation that you're going to win. So rearrange how things are going. Now, I know what you're thinking. Who's got time for all of that? We got so much going on. We're trying to get through the day, and we're trying to serve our people at the highest level. Who in the world has got time for all that? Here's a better question. If you don't do this, do you have time to allow your clients, your customers, your patients to walk out the door with those dollars not being spent with you? And it's not just about you from a selfish standpoint. Your customers, your clients, and your patients are not being helped at the highest level unless you learn this and implement it in that way. And that's just all there is to it. You don't have time not to do this. So, this afternoon,
about value, when we talk about value,
sorry,
if you're
camera's moving around on me.
I'm trying to drive.
Whoa.
Don't do that, man.
Sorry.
So if your patients are giving you all those excuses of why they don't buy, right? My insurance, what's my insurance cover? What's the total? Out of pocket, all of those things. Give them some tips, Sean, of how they can go about the first steps of creating value. One of the tips I would give you is you got to learn to ask open-ended questions. You cannot solve problems until you know what the problem is. In dentistry specifically, we know what the problem is clinically because we look in the mouth and we say, oh, you need a crown, right?
Or if it's an HVAC company, you look at the unit, or you look inside the ductwork. If you're a CPA, you can look at what's going on in terms of the P&Ls and so forth. But the bottom line is, the first step is you have to recognize that the code, when a patient says how much does that cost, or a customer says, how much does that cost, what does my insurance cover, all of that, that's code for I've not created value. If I understand that, then I can stop, slow down, and ask an open-ended question. The other thing that Cameron talked about is, the value is created emotionally. So you have to realize that what you do in your service business is not what the customer wants. The customer wants to solve an emotional problem. Your job...
Two things that motivate people. You should write this down if you're listening to this. Human beings are motivated by two things, pain and pleasure. They're either trying to get out of pain emotionally, or they're trying to get into pleasure.
Emotionally.
And you owe it to your customers to figure out how your goods or services can either get them out of pain or get them into pleasure, and then paint that picture for them.
Another way to say that is what you do in your service business is not what they want. It's the means to the end. And the end of what they want is to get out of pain or get into pleasure emotionally. So when somebody says, now the trick is to figure this out before you get to the financial, because if you're trying to have a financial conversation and make it affordable for your customer, you can't do that if you're also trying to create value. So it has to happen before you get into the financial conversation. And if you recognize that you've not created value before you get into the financial conversation, now you can back up and create value and then move forward to the financial. So when you hear those words, you realize you've not created value, you ask open-ended questions. So what is it that's most important to you? If you're really good, you'll do this before. You'll recognize that my job is to create value on the front end, and I'll start the whole conversation by finding out what's most important to you overall. Whether it's cars that you're selling, whether it's a service business that you have, whether it's plumbing, electric, heating and cooling, CPA, attorney, real estate, a coaching business, a dentist, it doesn't really matter. got to start the conversation by realizing that what you do is not what that customer wants. What you do is simply the means to the end, and the end is what it is that they want emotionally. So you start out by finding out what it is that they want emotionally. And to bring this all back around to what we were saying, you got to realize that I cannot create value in a financial conversation. So the sale takes place before you get to the financial conversation. Now, if your particular business, you've got that separated out. In other words, you have a person who deals with the finances. You have a person who's dealing with the customer. Then it takes place dealing with the customer before it gets to the finances. If you're a dentist, then it takes place in the chair well before you have a conversation about the finances with the person who handles the front. And that is, can we call it Wednesday wisdom?
Wednesday, rainy day.
Rainy day.
Rainy
I'm
day
gonna
wisdom.
show them how it looks out there. Oh, it's bad, y'all.
Oh.
It's really bad. So bad. As a matter of fact, school is closed today for flooding. What about that?
Yeah.
I mean, how often does that happen? Right?
Not very often.
Today, here's the challenge. Go back to your business and make sure that from here on out, you've got a systematic, strategic approach so that the value is created, number one, and number two, it's created before and away from the financial conversation, so that when it's time for the financial, it's all about the financial and how to make it affordable. And that is what's going to have you be as successful as you possibly can be, and that's what we want for you, is to have you be as successful as you can be. There's Kurt Hovey. Hey, Kurt, how are you, my friend?
Happier clients,
better results, making more money, and enjoying the ride. We'll see you next week on Dental Profits.